Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary with a knife video. This is going to be a really fun video, I think. This is a knife that I have really enjoyed and I hope you will as well. This is the Benchmade Crooked River. Gotta tell you, I kind of missed this knife on first go around when I was watching all the SHOT Show videos and looking at the new stuff coming out. I normally don't pay a lot of attention to Benchmade's like hunt lineup, and that's where this knife is from. And so I kind of missed it. Now, once I saw it, I believe I saw it on Instagram for the first time. Once I saw it, I was like, wow, I gotta figure this out. I gotta check it out a little more. And I went back and watched those videos all the way through and did watch the portion on the new knives in the hunt line. And so, very, very cool blade. When I first saw this, I was like, wow, that is extremely impressive. I love the marriage here of modern and traditional. You know, you got a bolster with a clip point, which definitely is a very traditional sort of knife-esque sort of features. But then you do have the G10, the G10 backspacer, that aluminum ring around the pivot screw there, and of course an axis lock. And as for 30V steel, doesn't hurt either. Now this is available in a wood, laminated wood, or I guess it's like a plastic impregnated wood scale. I definitely preferred the G10. All right, so that of course is the one I went with. Let's go ahead and now that you've kind of got my introduction on this, get into some of the specs, size and weight on this. It's a little over 9 1/4 inches, so 9 5/16 overall. Basically a 4-inch blade. It's about a 1/16 of an inch shy of that, and 5 3/8 inch handle. Okay, so 5 3/8 inches. It's a little over 1/2 inch in thickness here, but you can see that it actually folds down pretty comfortably and carries quite nicely in pocket, at least for my experience. One other thing that I should tell you that is extremely impressive about this is the weight. This knife weighs in at only 5.4 ounces. And for a knife of this size with those features, with the G10 backspacer, with those thick stainless steel liners, that is very, very impressive as far as I'm concerned. And so it gives you that option of having a fairly large knife without a whole lot of weight. Okay, now I know there are other knives that are lighter, and let's go ahead and do comparisons right now. This is, of course, the Broken Skull. It's a lot lighter, okay, but these are very, very different knives. I know they both have clip points. They're both large folders, but the Benchmade is in a very different category, okay? This is sort of high-end carry. This is not high-end carry at all, but this is sort of lightweight utility. This is a knife you're going to carry. It's still useful, it's still practical, but you're going to take a little more pride in this one, I would say, than this one. Okay, but that's a good size comparison, I think, especially since this is a very popular knife right now. Lots of people are familiar with it. That's how those two compare. A couple other common knives, and then I will have a Benchmade as well to show you. Here's my 0560, great knife. Again, similar in size, but quite a bit heavier. You know, you got a lot of weight here compared to this knife, compared to the Benchmade Crooked River, even though you're really not getting much more in terms of, and I guess you're not getting anything more really in terms of performance and all of that. Another good one, I think, is the Recon 1. These knives honestly remind me of each other in some ways. I know they're not comparable in price point or a lot of other things, but they're both fairly large clip points. They're both very, very similar in size, and they're both very similar in weight. Okay, both just a little over, you know, around 5.5 ounces. So very, very cool blade. One last knife here for you. This is not really a size comparison so much as it is to show you how large this knife is. I picked out other larger knives, but this is kind of a comfortable and common everyday carry size knife. This is the Benchmade Axis Striker in carbon fiber and M4. Really, really awesome blade. But this is more like what people will tend to carry in their pockets. So you can see that the Crooked River is fairly substantial in terms of size, okay? Now, let's go ahead and get zoomed in here a little bit so we can talk about some of the other more detailed features that we want to look at. Come on, camera's not really cooperating there for a minute. Okay, so there you go. Get a nice close view there. Extremely attractive knife as far as I'm concerned. You know, I think one of the things that Benchmade really, really nailed on this is they made a knife that looks just gorgeous. All right, still very, very functional, still very, very practical, comfortable, all of that other stuff we look for on a knife, but at the same time it looks really, really sharp. Okay, and I love the combination. I've said this before, but I do love that combination of the sort of modern with a design. The design is still a modern design, I would say, but it's certainly taking some very traditional cues with the bolster and blade shape and stuff like that. So this blade is S30V. It's a flat grind. You can see it's a partial flat grind. Clip point, they have kind of taken some swedges out here on top, which looks really, really nice. I will say this blade is fairly thick behind the edge, as a lot of Benchmades are, but the secondary bevel is fairly steep, so it actually slices really well. And this knife, I've done just about everything with it, and one of the ways I always kind of test for how slicey a knife is when you're doing food prep. Does it split things apart? You guys know about the cheese test. Does it cut cheese without sticking to it? This knife slices really, really well. It's also, you know, reasonably thick blade stock. It's not crazy big, but it's going to be a reasonably strong blade. There's a fair bit of metal out here at the tip. Unlike, if you remember the broken skull, one of the things I pointed out was there's not that much material out here, so there was some risk of breaking that. Not so much. I mean, any knife, if you drop it right on the tip, there's a good chance you're going to break the tip off. So try not to do that. But there is some strength here, okay? I love the way, now this is kind of a Benchmade thing, okay? This is, I would call this a satin finish at first look, but as I kind of move it through the light, notice that sometimes it looks stonewashed. And Benchmade does this sort of weird satin stonewash finish that's pretty common on a lot of their blades. I think it looks pretty sharp. I especially like on this, you can really see the grind lines. They're all, you know, going across the blade this way, which is fine. Really, really nice looking blade. Very useful. Okay, a clip point is nice because you get a good combination of belly, you get a sharp point, you get a lot of utility, and you've got quite a bit of belly here. Now, this is from the Hunt series, and the idea, you know, is that this could serve as a hunting knife. To me, I don't know, a folding knife is not a great hunting knife because if you're going to skin anything with it, a lot of things that you do in hunting are going to get your knife dirty and messy and all of that. And so you've got all these moving parts that really are not going to hold up well when you get a bunch of dirt in there. Not that I'm suggesting for a second this blade shape isn't a useful shape for hunting. It certainly is. It's just that I would look for this shape in more of a fixed blade if I was actually going to hunt with this. I see this more as a large EDC blade, even somewhat of a hard use. Not so, you know, combat ready, although any knife of course will do that, and this is large, gives you pretty good traction and a lot of reach. But that's just a very traditional, very useful blade shape in S30V steel. It's going to work out really, really well for you. And of course, that nice big 4 inches is, to me, a huge drawing feature. I love those nice big blades. Okay, as we kind of move down here, we'll talk about lockup and deployment. But notice before we do that really attractive collar around the pivot screw there and that aluminum bolster. I love the way that, you know, you have these sort of touches there that just add, I think, a little something to the interest level on this knife. All right, got to say, very, very comfortable in hand. I keep getting it in my hand here, and I just wanted to make that comment. Let's stay focused on the lockup. This is the axis lock. It's a very smooth, very fast axis lock. No blade play of any kind, up and down, side to side. Everything's really, really solid, which is pretty much expected of Benchmade. You don't see a lot of Benchmades where you have issues. Now, I will say, a lot of Benchmades that I've had, and I'm sure this one would do it too eventually, or in the right conditions, a lot of Benchmades will get a little bit of blade play because of gunk and dirt that interferes. It's not that anything has happened, you just need to kind of wipe things out in here, but where the bar that slides up onto the tang of the knife there, where those two connect, sometimes you'll get dirt or grit or pocket lint is what often gets in mine, and then that'll introduce a little bit of blade play. This one doesn't have any, mostly because I kind of cleaned it up this morning, but I haven't really noticed it with this knife. It's worse with knives where, notice how there's a bit of protection here. Knives like the Striker, okay, see how all of this is exposed. If it's in the bottom of your pocket, if you have any oil or anything on this, dirt's going to stick to that. And as you slide this up, that dirt is going to be pushed up into the interface between lock in between the bar here and the tang of the blade. Okay, so very good lock. Benchmade Axis lock is extremely well done. You know, I know every once in a while you hear complaints about the Omega springs. But if an Omega spring breaks, you can get a new one from Benchmade without too much difficulty. All right, let's keep going with this. And of course, warranty is going to cover that if that ever happened. But it's not that common. I've never had an Omega spring break, and I've had tons of Benchmades, and I've had them for prolonged use and prolonged time, and never had an issue with that. So Axis lock, very strong, very well done. What about the handle? Really, really cool handle on this. Okay, fairly thick pieces of stainless steel there. If I turn it this way, you can probably see, right about there, I would suspect, you should be able to see the holes drilled in here, so it's quite well milled out. Then you have the G10 on this portion and an aluminum bolster here. The other option for this is a brown sort of impregnated or laminated wood handle that I'm sure works really, really well. To me, it wasn't as attractive as the G10. I really, really like the sort of gray and gray color here, especially with the orange backspacer. I think that really makes it sort of pop. Two-position pocket clip, so lefties, you're going to be fine with this knife. And it is a Parkerized clip, so really well done. Now, this knife I think could do well with the bent over Benchmade clip, like the one that actually came on that Axis Striker that I showed you a couple of minutes ago. I think that would work well on this particular knife. Very, very comfortable in hand, although not a ton of traction. Okay, there's no, like many Benchmades that have this bit of jimping here, that jimping is not doing a whole lot for you other than, I guess if you really squeeze, you can sort of feel it, but even then, I'm pushing pretty hard and I can slide my thumb pretty easily. It does have, you know, this nice choil at the front. It's actually a really good size. It's open enough that you can get 2 fingers there without bothering, or you can get 1. It does give you some options in terms of, do I want to, you know, choke up or do I want to choke down a little bit? Okay, that's really handy. Really comfortable in literally every possible way that you could grip this knife. It's extremely comfortable. Okay, so the handle, I mean, everything on this is just fairly well done. I don't have any really major complaint about this knife, other than maybe a little bit of extra traction would have been appreciated, you know, maybe here or even in this front choil at the bottom. Let's zoom back out here. All right, so overall, I've got to tell you, I really, really like this knife. It checks a lot of boxes for me. It's big, you know, big blade, very useful. It also, I think, is a great sort of combination of very traditional design cues with very modern materials. And even as you look at it, even the design has sort of that contemporary look and feel to it, but it's almost like it's kind of saying, yeah, you know, we'll just kind of borrow some older ideas and incorporate them into the blade. So very, very well done. I've got to say, this for 2016 may be my favorite knife overall for the year. It's extremely, extremely good. So there you go, guys. Benchmade Crooked River. I really, really like this knife. Highly, highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk to you soon.